of the collision resulted in the further transfer of kinetic energy to thermal energy and potentially sound energy. Step C. The widget experiences increased pressure when at the bottom of the container. The widget continued to move downward and into a greater relative density disequilibrium with the sugar solution medium. When the kinetic energy of the moving widget was transferred to thermal energy via the interaction friction with the lower density sugar solution layers, the widget no longer possessed the energy to overcome the upward pressure of the more dense sugar solution layers it was passing into. Step D. The pressure from the sugar solution causes the widget to move upward. The widget has been forced into relative density disequilibrium with its sugar solution medium. The pressure from the more dense sugar solution underneath the widget causes the widget to move in an upward direction. As the widget moves through the less dense sugar solution layers above the interaction friction, it results in the transfer of kinetic energy to thermal energy. Step E. Continued pressure from the sugar solution causes the widget to move upward. The pressure from the underneath layer of sugar solution causes the widget to keep moving upward. As the widget moves upward, it is pushed through the less dense layers of sugar solution that are exerting less pressure relative to the more dense lower down layers of sugar solution. This interaction friction between the widget and the medium results in the kinetic energy of the widget being transferred to thermal energy and the widget decelerating. Due to the density and pressure gradients presented in the sugar solution medium, the upward force, pressure, is greater than the downward force, pressure, and the inertial mass of the widget, which results in the widget moving in an upward direction. Step F. The widget reaches relative density equilibrium or near to it with its sugar solution medium. The widget rises to the top of the sugar solution. The widget strikes the surface of the water, and the surface tension of the water combined with air pressure prevents the widget from moving upward any further. The upward and downward forces on the widget are balanced, and the widget is in relative density equilibrium or near to it with the sugar solution medium. What happened? The widget was pushed to the bottom of the sugar solution and rose back up again. Note: it is appreciated that the density and concentration gradient will continue to increase, which will result in the widget eventually moving into a horizontal position. Any thermal energy generated by energy transfer will reach temperature equilibrium with the surroundings. Widget in relative density equilibrium or near to with the sugar solution, high entropy. The widget is pushed downward, force applied. Widget has kinetic energy. The widget moves downward. The widget is in relative density disequilibrium, lower entropy. Widget losing kinetic energy. Sugar solution gaining thermal energy. The widget is at the bottom of the container, low entropy. The entire length of the widget is less dense than the layers of sugar solution surrounding it. The widget is pushed upward by the pressure from the more dense sugar solution layer underneath it. Force applied. Widget has kinetic energy. The widget moves upward, higher entropy. Widget losing kinetic energy. Sugar solution gaining thermal energy. Widget back up to the top of the sugar solution and in relative density equilibrium or near to it with the sugar solution, high entropy. Conclusion: when pushed downwards, the widget moved back upward because the pushing force, pressure, and its vector from the finger transferred kinetic energy to the widget, causing it to move downwards through the sugar solution, putting it in relative density disequilibrium. As the widget moved downward against the increasing density and concentration gradient of the sugar solution medium, its interaction, friction, with the medium resulted in the kinetic energy of the widget being transferred to thermal energy and the widget slowing down and stopping. The dense layers of the sugar solution pushed, pressure, the relatively less dense widget upward. The widget's interaction, friction, with the above less dense sugar layers it was moving through resulted in a transfer of kinetic energy to thermal energy. The upward force pressure from the sugar solution on the widget is balanced by the surface tension of the water and air pressure and the inertial mass of the widget, resulting in the widget being in relative density equilibrium or near to it with the sugar solution medium. Summary: the mechanism for the widget going up and down when pushed. 1. The object starts in relative density equilibrium or near to it with its medium and surroundings. The domain, the object and the medium surroundings, has a high entropy at this point, a limited ability to do work as the energy of the domain is dispersed. 2. An external agent event results in the application of a force, in this instance pressure, and the transfer of kinetic energy from the external agent event to the object medium. 3. The moving object is no longer in relative density equilibrium with its medium and surroundings. The medium, moving, and surroundings are no longer in relative density equilibrium with the object. 4. The kinetic energy of the object moving is transferred into thermal energy as it interacts, a force friction, with the medium, moving, and surroundings. The thermal energy is lost to the surroundings and thermal equilibrium is established. 5. The domain has a lower entropy at this point compared to before the input from the external agent event. 6. The object and the medium and surroundings proceed back towards a position of relative density equilibrium. 7. The application of a force, pressure, by the medium results in the transfer of kinetic energy between the object and the medium. 8. This results in the object and medium moving, and their interaction, a force friction, results in the transfer of kinetic energy into thermal energy. The thermal energy is lost to the surroundings and thermal equilibrium is established. 9. The object and medium return to relative density equilibrium and the domain returns to having a high entropy. Domain in relative density equilibrium and high entropy, possessing limited potential energy. Force, example pressure, large one-off force or multiple small sustained forces for a time from an external agent. Energy transfer, one-off or sustained for a time from an external agent. Medium, object, either or both, moving. Medium and object, either or both, kinetic energy transferring to thermal energy and possibly other forms. Domain in relative density disequilibrium and low entropy, possesses potential energy. Force, example pressure, large one-off force or multiple small sustained forces for a time from an external agent. Energy transfer, one-off or sustained for a time from an external agent. Medium, object, either or both, moving. Medium, object, either or both, kinetic energy transferring to thermal energy and possibly other forms. Domain returns to relative density equilibrium and high entropy, possessing limited potential energy. A process profile diagram for the widget going up and down when pushed. Please pause to examine this slide carefully. Can this mechanism describe the egg observation? The egg was placed in a salt solution that had an established density and concentration gradient. The egg was left to obtain relative density equilibrium with the salt solution. The A and B show the top and bottom position of the egg relative to the density layers of the salt solution. Note: it is not known whether the starting salt solution was saturated or not. It is assumed it was not saturated and more salt will dissolve into the solution. When solid salt granules, mass, were added to the salt solution, they sunk to the bottom of the container. The solid salt granules joined the layer of solid salt already at the bottom of the container. The solid salt displaced the column of salt solution upwards by its volume. See Archimedes' principle. The column of salt solution would have risen if it wasn't obviously observable. The new added solid salt granules at the bottom of the container affected the already existing density and concentration gradient of the salt solution within the container. Every layer of the density and concentration gradient became more dense and concentrated as the new solid salt granules dissolved into the salt solution. The layers that the egg was suspended in became more dense and concentrated, and the egg rose higher in the solution. But what caused the egg to rise? The addition of the mass of salt causes the density and concentration of the salt solution layers of the gradient to increase, resulting in the egg being in a temporary relative density disequilibrium with the medium. The salt solution layers the egg is suspended in have become more dense, and the layers are exerting greater pressure, force, on the egg, which causes the now relatively less dense egg to be pushed, forced upward. The egg is pushed, forced upward, until it reaches a position of relative density equilibrium and is suspended in salt solution layers whose pressures are not high enough to force the egg up any further. Why did the egg go upward? The egg was pushed upward as that was the only direction it could proceed. The egg can't go downward as the higher density salt solution layers underneath it are pushing up against it for the highest pressure. The egg can't go sideways as the high density salt solution layers around the egg at this level is pushing against it from all horizontal directions at a high pressure. Thus, the lower pressure area above the egg is the only direction the egg can be pushed to. Why the egg went up? Mass, G, of salt added to the salt solution medium. Anthony's statement, this, the salt, altered the amount of mass in the medium. The density and concentration gradients of the salt solution increases along the entire gradient in an upward direction. Anthony's statement, the only place the change in mass can go is up. The increased pressure from the increased density and concentration gradient layers of salt solution below and to the side of the egg pushes the egg upward. Anthony's statement, and cause pressure that pushes the egg up from underneath. The force is pressure caused by adding mass below the egg. The cause and effect chain. Increased mass, salt added to the solution, results in increased density of the layers along the density gradient. Layers of salt solution underneath the egg become more dense. The layers along the density gradient exert increased pressure. Layers of salt solution underneath the egg exert more pressure than the layers above the egg. The effect is the egg rises in the solution. Clearly, without the addition of the mass of sugar, the widget and egg would not have risen in the medium.